Welcome once again, everybody. My name is Russ Needham. I'm part of the HR team in the corporate office. And with me today is Bridget Williams, also from the corporate office. She's our AVP of Quality and Clinical Excellence. We're happy to have her today with us. And Bridget's going to share with us some of her reasons for why she has decided to go ahead and get the vaccine for herself. And again, these are personal reasons, and we're happy to have Bridget with us to share those reasons with us. But Bridget, do you want to go ahead and get started and just let folks know what your role is and your responsibilities on the team in the corporate office?
Sure. Thanks, Russ, for giving me the opportunity to share my thought journey with getting the vaccine. In my role in serving in the resident care department here at the corporate office, I support all 10 communities around quality and Medicare compliance. So I'm the one behind helping us to make sure that, one, we achieve and adhere to the regulatory standards that we are mandated to follow in the care center, but also look to strategic quality goals for the organization so that we continue to strive towards that excellence that we're known for at V. So it's a pleasure to serve in my role and to support all of you out at the community level.
Well, thanks, Bridget. Bridget, could you share with us a little bit about your personal decision for why you decided to go ahead and get the vaccination? You shared with me, I think you've had your first inoculation, so maybe you can talk through that with us a little bit.
Sure. Just like everyone else here in our country, I had some doubts about the vaccine being developed so quickly, and wondering if it was effective and safe. I'll be honest, at first I had some negative responses or some hesitancy to the vaccine based on my own negative biases with the vaccine, again, being so new and being in the higher risk group, being a breast cancer survivor. I was wondering about the safety and the side effects. Secondly, just like many people in the African-American community, me being an African-American woman, I had some mistrust and distrust issues about the vaccine. Still, African-American culture often cites as the Tuskegee syphilis study. And so all of that was going through my mind as a member of the African-American community. But after conducting some research and as the clinical trials proceeded, I became very interested because I am a healthcare professional. So evidence-based research is very important in the nursing profession. So I started diving into the information about the clinical trials. Actually have my family member of my own that was participant in the clinical trials. So became very interested, found out that there were 30,000 plus study participants in the clinical trials. 10% of those participants were African Americans or people of color, and 20% were of Hispanic origin. Further, I also discovered that some of the participants also had comorbid, or what we call pre-existing conditions, or conditions that might be listed at risk for getting the vaccine, and read about the efficacy of the vaccine in the population of people of color. So I began to have a little bit more confidence in making the decision to get the vaccine, but wasn't still quite sure. When the Pfizer vaccine was released, I kind of was in that frame of mind, well, I'll just kind of wait and see what side effects people experience. But my daughter got the Pfizer vaccine because she is a nurse. She got her second injection and had no side effects at all, aside from soreness in the arm and a mild headache. So obviously that piqued my interest, Russ. And I made the concerted decision when my primary health care provider sent out an email saying that as a nurse, I would be able to get the Moderna vaccine through my healthcare group. So I went ahead and scheduled the vaccine to get the injection. For reasons being, as a healthcare professional and a woman of color, I felt it was my knowledgeable, educated responsibility to get the vaccine. One, to impact the prevalence of COVID-19 in the Black community, because we know that in the Black community, there's a disproportionate prevalence of COVID-19 and a disproportionate negative outcome of COVID-19 once the individual was infected. Two, to raise the level of trust in the Black community based on what I know, being a member of the African American community, we tend to rely a lot on the healthcare professionals, our pastors, because our culture is very much linked to our spiritual wellness. So we tend to rely on those individuals that look like us. So if I can be an ambassador for getting the vaccine, being a woman of color, I felt that that was my responsibility. We know that I would be, this is the way I was thinking about it, I would be at greater risk getting COVID-19 without the vaccine than I would with the vaccine. And to me, that made a lot of sense, again, given my history of breast cancer and being a survivor. So I'm very passionate about my wellness after recovering from that illness. And then keeping my family safe. My husband, my children, and then most importantly, elders in my family that I want to continue to be able to interact with when all of this is over. And then lastly, I had my own personal experience with COVID-19 this year. My dad was infected and having severe COPD. You could imagine that the course of having this infection took a toll on my dad, resulting in very severe illness, requiring a ventilator, on hospice care. And thank God, though, he miraculously made a turnaround. In fact, the doctor said that he's a miracle. After 4 months of hospitalization, my dad is now pretty much back to baseline. He still requires oxygen 24 hours a day, which was his baseline before. But he's up and walking. He's gained weight. He has an appetite, and he can continue to interact with us, albeit primarily via FaceTime because of the pandemic. There is no visitation at the assisted living. So that's my journey of making that decision.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Bridget. That's I'm sure that's going to resonate with a lot of folks that watch this video. And I think probably at this point in the pandemic, we all know somebody, at least somebody close to us that's had it or has suffered through it. So appreciate that story as well. Any words that you might have for anybody who is still a little bit concerned about whether the vaccination is for them, and any words that you might want to say to those folks at this time?
What I would say is continue to educate yourself and not be afraid to ask the pointed questions of the experts, of the nurses at the communities. We've all been spending numerous hours in the resident care department getting educated and providing resources of education for the communities and the corporate office. But I would say continue to get your questions answered, deal with your fears. One of the things that I say that I even learned myself, and I didn't think about it this way until recently. I was recently on a call about healthcare disparities, particularly dealing with this very issue with the vaccine. And again, in the African American community, we often cite the Tuskegee syphilis study, but the Tuskegee syphilis study is a little bit different than what we're considering with the vaccine. In that study, known effective treatment was withheld. Whereas in this instance, known effective treatment is offered. So when that perspective was presented to me, that is something that helped me to turn the corner. But I would say, get your fears addressed, get educated, ask your doctor if you're concerned about pre-existing conditions that you feel may or may not put you at risk. One question that I often am answered in my community when I'm talking to my family or my friends is, if I get the vaccine and I have a response that requires acute, urgent medical care in my community, how am I gonna be guaranteed the quality of care if something happens to me because of the vaccine? That is a question that is often asked of me. And my response is, you're monitored for reactions. And if you find yourself experiencing a serious reaction, get to the nearest emergency room. There have been enough study and time in this research to know how to treat you if you end up with side effects. But a large majority of people don't experience side effects. I have no side effects at all. I just had a sore arm, which disturbed my sleep a little bit. But I had no side effects at all. Neither did my daughter. My husband recently was vaccinated, and so far, no side effects. So I would encourage people to continue to ask the pointed questions.
That's good advice. Appreciate that. Well, thank you, Bridget. Really appreciate the time that you've taken with us today. And any last words for us?
Oh, my last word would be patient. We'll all get through this together. The scientists are continuing to conduct research to help us get out of this pandemic. But more importantly, keeping our minds on keeping one another encouraged through this. We've gone through almost a year now of being kind of quarantined to home or feeling like we're isolated to home. But we need to just remain encouraged and taking care of one another at this point, and keeping our eye on the ball of there's a light at the end of this tunnel. And pretty soon we'll get to some semblance of normalcy. I don't know that it'll be the way we used to know it, but some semblance of normalcy nevertheless.
Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to that. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for for the time, Russ, and allowing me to share my story. I'm hopeful that it will help others as they make their decision. And the other thing that I want to say is I want to just stress that if an individual makes the decision not to get the vaccine, we as healthcare professionals, while we encourage it, we understand it is a personal decision. And I don't want anyone to feel like they're going to be judged for not making the decision to get the vaccine. So that's my last message.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thanks, Bridget. Thanks again. And thanks everybody for joining us today. All right.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.